Brenda here from Roaming and Recording with a crash course on onboard credit.
Hi everyone, Brenda and Craig from Roaming and Recording. Today we're going to talk about everything OBC, onboard credit, what it is, how to get it, and most importantly, the fun part, how to spend it.
There's three types of onboard credits. There's the refundable type, which you usually get through a travel agent. And that is, you can use it, or if you don't use it, you get reimbursed for the amount you didn't use. There's a non-refundable, which you usually get through the cruise line themselves. And that one, you have to use it or you lose it. And the third type is category specific, where it is designated either to use at the spa or excursions or something like that.
So the big question is, how do you get it? You can get onboard credit before your cruise, during your cruise, and sometimes even after your cruise to apply to the next cruise. We're going to tell you how. The most common way to get onboard credit is before you get on the cruise ship. The easiest way, of course, is whatever the cruise line is offering. A lot of times they will have a particular offer. For instance, Oceania will give you $600 of onboard credit towards shore excursions. Or if they're trying to sell out a cruise line might say, hey, book between this time and that time, and you'll get an extra $100. That's an easy way. The second way to get it before is to give that booking to a travel agent. Oftentimes, a travel agent will add additional onboard credit that can be stacked with anything that your cruise line has given you. A third way to do it is to have a shareholder. And Craig's going to tell you about the shareholder benefit here in just a moment. Another way is group bookings. If you have 5 cabins that you're going to book or more, it's a good idea to give your cruise line a call and ask them if they have a group rate. Oftentimes they'll give you a discounted cruise rate and even add $50 to $100 per cabin on board. So you can $1 per cabin, stack that one as well. And believe it or not, the way that you pay your cruise can give you free onboard credit. A lot of premium credit cards like the American Express Platinum, Chase Sapphire Reserve, and other ones will give you anywhere between $50 to $350 every single cruise that you book through them. Now, that's not always going to stack. It really depends on the price of your cruise, if you got any special offers. But we actually got $300 on a trip to Scotland that we didn't even know we had at the time. So that was a nice surprise. My point being is always ask your cruise representative or your travel agent, hey, what can I stack? And maximize that onboard credit. And while we're talking about credit cards, remember that some cruise lines have a cruise branded credit card that will offer you points on every purchase that you make. And some people can turn that into onboard credit or even a category upgrade when they book their cruise. Worth checking into. Another way to get onboard credit is with your shareholder benefits. And Craig is the one who usually does that on behalf of our cruises. So how do you do it, Craig?
Yeah, that's worked out real well for us. I think most of the cruise lines do have some kind of program that gives you onboard credits if you're a shareholder. And I'm familiar with the NCL family of cruise lines. So we've been on NCL, we've been on Oceania. And it's really easy to do. You have to be an owner of 100 shares of the stock. You fill out a simple form that's on their website, and you just send it in with a proof of ownership of the stock. My experience is they send you a confirmation number that they received it, and then it will just appear on your statement, your cruise statement. And for NCL, you get $50 for a 6-day or less cruise, $100 for 14 days. And then you get up to $250 for a 15-day or more. So it's pretty generous. I don't want to give you any kind of investment advice, but we own 100 shares, and it's worked out real well for us. We've been able to use it several times to get more onboard credit.
And if you're brand loyal, it really makes sense to see if that is something that works into your financial planning. And it's kind of like getting a dividend several times a year if you're brand loyal and you travel several times.
Yeah, so it's worked out real well for us. So that's just another way of getting more onboard credit.
I always track the prices of our cruises, and if they go down, I will usually call my travel agent or my personal cruise consultant, and I will get it repriced. That's before final payment. So sometimes, but usually not all, it's at the discretion of the cruise line to give you onboard credit. If after you've made final payment and your price goes significantly down, it's worth a call and say, hey, it went down. What can you do for me? 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to say nothing. But that 1 time out of 10, you might score some big time onboard credit. I know of one cruiser just recently who got over $600 in onboard credit after she made her final payment. So again, it's always worth checking in to see what they can do for you. Just be nice. Another way to get some onboard credit for you and for other people traveling maybe with you or traveling on a different trip is through referrals. Now, there's not too many cruise lines that do this, but I do know that Windstar does. So if you know someone who is going to cruise on a brand that you're loyal to, you might want to check to see if they have a referral bonus. And usually how that works is they will give you $50 or $100, and they will give the person who you've referred to onboard credit to use on a trip that you're on now or a trip that will be in the future. You can also get onboard credit while you are on your cruise. There's a couple of ways to do this. The first one is, unfortunately, sometimes things happen and maybe a port will get canceled. And if that's the case, your excursion probably got canceled. Hopefully what they're going to do is refund that back to your credit card. But let's say you used a credit card that perhaps you've already closed and they can't refund it. Then you'll get onboard credit. Just make sure that the onboard credit is refundable onboard credit.
So another way that you can get onboard credit is if you make a deposit while you're on your cruise for a future cruise. For instance, when we were on our transatlantic on Oceania, we went and got a $500 deposit called Next Cruise, and with that came $100 onboard credit that we used on the cruise we were on. So that worked out real well for us because we're most likely going to go on a future Oceania NCL cruise anyhow. So you might look into that. I think most cruise lines offer that kind of deal.
A final way that you can get onboard credit during your cruise, and we hope that you never have to get it this way, is if something really goes wrong during your cruise. This would be something that the cruise line cannot fix and something that you've brought to their attention. So just keep in mind that they are human and they are doing their best to make your cruise enjoyable for you. But if something should happen, let's say the cruise was overbooked, or maybe your cabin was booked as a balcony and something happened where that balcony wasn't able to be occupied for that cruise, and unfortunately maybe they had to put you down into a lower category cabin because the cruise is sold out. You could go down to guest services nicely and ask if they can make some compensation. Now what I would expect is to get a fare refunded, at least the difference of the fare, but if that can't happen, an onboard credit is certainly reasonable. All right, Craig, now we get to tell them what to spend their onboard credit on. The first thing I always look at is what do I have to pay? And usually that is your onboard gratuities. Now, not every cruise line will allow you to use your onboard credit for gratuities. We usually pay ours up front. NCL and Holland America, for instance, will not allow that, but a lot of them do. So if you've got a lot of onboard credit, it's a good way to save some cash.
Right. You can also use your onboard credit to make life easier on the cruise itself. Like you could use it for babysitting or kids club services, Wi-Fi for sure. Laundry services always comes in nice. And you can use it for room service. And room service is always a great way to spend your onboard credit.
And of course, there are lots of ways to use your onboard credit to make things more fun for you. The ones that we like are the drink packages, either upgrading it, or if you're not a big drinker, like I'm not a big drinker, we will get bottles of wine and you can charge those to your room and that will come off on your onboard credit. And specialty restaurants, we love the specialty restaurants, don't we?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
They're the best.
Yeah. And so I think the best way to do your onboard credit with your specialty restaurants is if they have a package. Like NCL will have a package of, maybe 3 of them for a special price when you get on board. So go ahead and purchase that and then run up to the restaurant and make your reservations. They go fast. And if you're like me and you like some specialty coffees, if you like the Starbucks on board or, the fancy baristas that they have, That's a great way too. Those things can make your trip so much more enjoyable.
Right, and there's also onboard activities that you can do. Like we like to play the bingo. Sometimes there's arcades and go-karts on ships. You can usually use them for them. Sometimes you can use it in the casino. You have to really check with the service desk to see if they allow you to use your onboard credit for that.
And like the Deal and No Deal, the big shows, some of the shows even will have a premium to get in for like a dinner and a show on certain lines. So those are some great ways to make your experience way more fun. And of course, we got to talk about the spa and the fitness centers. A lot of the cruise lines now are very focused on wellness and relaxation. And I'll be honest, boy, the massages on a cruise line are really expensive. I'm a massage therapist and I wish I made $300 an hour, but I don't. So if you have a big stack of onboard credit, boy, that's a really great way to really treat yourself, start your vacation off right, or to recoup from a strenuous excursion. Speaking of which, can you use it for excursions, Greg?
Yes, you can. Excursions, especially last minute excursions, you can use your onboard credit for that.
Mm-hmm. Great. Anything that you would book on board that's going to cost you some money, you can usually do onboard credit. All you got to do is go down to guest services and ask if you're unsure. And you can always go down to guest services and ask how much onboard credit that you have. Usually it's going to show up in your app or on your portal, but if you're not sure, just go down and ask. They certainly know. And don't forget, if you're having a multi-generational family reunion, a lot of the larger cruise lines have onboard photographers, and they take some amazing pictures for you. So your onboard credit can really keep those memories alive for everybody in your party. So just keep that in mind. And of course, you've got your souvenirs, your gift shops. Who doesn't want a logo hat?
Yeah, I usually try to get a t-shirt. If I don't win one, I'm going to go down to the gift shop and get a t-shirt or get a model of the ship we're on, something like that. Those are always fun to have.
Yep. And something to take back home for the little ones. And there are some things that you cannot use onboard credit for. Most obvious would be any medical services. We did do a video about getting trip insurance, and if you haven't watched that, you want to, because if you have to have medical services on board, they're going to expect payment during that cruise before you get off. So get that insurance first. Check out our video. And also know that you cannot use onboard credit towards any medical treatment on board. You also cannot use it for transportation to and from the pier or any flights. Sometimes they'll have flights included. Onboard credit does not work for that. Nor does it work on the purchase of your Cruise Next certificates.
Yeah, right. We told you that we got onboard credit related to the deposit we put down on future cruises, but you can't use it to pay your future cruises.
Right. So those are the three things.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope that our tips are going to garner you a whole lot of onboard credit. And if it does, we sure hope that you will like and subscribe to our channel. It really does mean the world to us, and it helps our micro channel. That being said, now that you've got all this onboard credit, what would happen if you couldn't spend it all?
Yeah, well, you got to spend it all, especially your non-refundable. So you could go down and give people who did a really great job for you, give them extra tips.
You just go to guest services and say, hey, I want to give, the bartender in XYZ bar $20 tip, or my housekeeping staff, I want to give an extra tip for, and they will apply it, and you can use that up.
And they would really appreciate that. So that's something you certainly want to do. Or like we said about the gift shops, you could go down there and get some more souvenirs and get some duty-free items. Just make sure you spend all your onboard credit before you leave.
Right. You can also use it in the salon to get your hair cut, your nails done. There are a lot of high-end cosmetics on ship. And, if you're brand loyal to one of those, why not stock up before you leave? You're going to buy it eventually, right? So did we miss anything?
I think we covered it pretty good.
All right. If you have used onboard credit, tell us below. Tell us the most unusual thing you've used it, how you used it, and what is your favorite onboard credit spend. Until next time, Brenda
and Craig, and we'll see you next time then. Bye now.
Take care.